Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here on our webinar, Preparing for the Digital Product Pass. Uh, First of all, just one organizational topic. If you have any questions, please post it into the chat and we will come down to you after the presentation and contact you with the answers directly via mail. Just a brief introduction, just that you know to whom you are talking to. We are from EFS Consulting. My name is Filip Ogonowski. I'm Senior Project Manager, especially in the topic regulatory compliance, mainly focus of strategical topics, management systems, and so on. EFS Consulting is the biggest independent consulting company in Austria. Our headquarters is in the beautiful city of Vienna. Also two further offices in China and one in Portugal. We are experienced in projects in more than 17 different countries all over the world, both Americas, Asia, and mainly all countries in Europe. Our bases are in the automotive industry, but over the years, we have active projects in many industries like consumer goods, public sector, and so on. We are 380 employees at EFS Consulting from 31 different nations, which is especially good for the topic regulatory compliance because we can read all regulations directly when they are published in the national language, which give us a huge advantage. We are experienced in 8 fields of competences all over the value chain: product strategy, life cycle management, cost pricing, supply chain, all digitalization and IT topics, culture, sustainability, and of course, in the field of our today's topic, which is located in our company in security and compliance, which we have today a deeper insight. I'm thrilled that I'm not alone today. I'm joined by our expert, Alan Schweikowski. He's a legal and regulatory expert with multiple years of experience in all different regulated action fields in a variety of economic regions all over the world. So welcome, Alan. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Alan Schweikowski. I work as a regulatory compliance expert at EFS Consulting, and today I will have the pleasure and the privilege to guide you through the topic of the digital product pass. Briefly about my person, I have a legal background, also an economic background. I'm a certified product compliance officer and also material compliance officer. And my daily job is dealing with various regulations worldwide. So I will guide you through the topic today. I will show you briefly the agenda so that you know what to expect, just so that you can understand where we see the topic of the digital product pass. We are here at the Department of Regulatory Compliance in our company. We specialize in several regulatory areas, as you can see. These are product compliance, automotive compliance, material compliance, environmental compliance, international trade compliance, and corporate compliance. So we have a very broad approach to regulatory compliance topics with many experts specializing in these single areas. And as you will see throughout the webinar, the digital product pass is anchored mostly in somewhere between the product compliance and the environmental compliance. But if you have any other regulatory questions from other areas, please feel free to contact us too. We will share later the contact data. Yeah, so now let's jump to the agenda for today. The webinar will take between 30 to 45 minutes. as Philip said, please, if you have any questions, ask them in the chat, and we will get back to you via email so that we can work on the answers to your questions. Now we will start with a short introduction of the digital product pass in a nutshell. We will talk to you about the background of the concept. Then we will get slightly deeper into the known details of the digital product pass. You are all interested in the topic, and you might have noticed that some things are already known and lots of things are still unknown about the digital product pass. So I will show you the, let's say, the knowledge gaps and what is missing and when to expect these informations. Then we will show you some exemplary applications of the DPP. What are the current standardization activities? Because it's also a highly technical topic. It's not only regulatory, but it's very much anchored in the IT as well. And then the last but not least, we will present the impact and opportunities for companies linked with the DPP and give you some tips about how to get ready for the digital product pass. There are, as I said, some missing information, but there are still some actions that companies can take now to be better prepared when the details are there. And then at the end, we will give answers to some frequently asked questions which are out there and which are already known based on a FAQ document published by the European Commission. So let's jump directly to the first point. Digital product pass in a nutshell. Digital product pass is supposed to be a central instrument of the European Union to develop a circular economy of products. It is a concept to collect and share various product-related information about different aspects of the product, materials, manufacture, its properties, recycling, etc. The forerunner of this concept was actually the EV battery, because the first EU regulation introducing such a concept or such a tool was the EU battery regulation. So it kind of led the way. And then what followed was in 2024, last year, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation. This is, let's say, the source or the regulation that put the foundations of the digital product pass. And in 2027, there is, let's say, the planned introduction of the DPP for selected products. However, we will see, because as you might have noticed recently, the EU has been delaying some of its sustainability laws, and who knows if maybe this will happen also in the case of the DPP, because as you will see, there is a lot work to be done and a lot of information still missing. Just to define what we are talking about, we wanted to show you the legal definition of the digital product pass, which is basically composed of two elements. One is that it is simply a set of data specific to the product. Which data? Data specified in applicable delegated act, but these acts are not there yet. So it's not fully clear which data will be required per product. I will show you later which are the possibilities. But let's say the acts defining these required data are still missing. And then the second component of the definition is that this set of data is supposed to be accessible via electronic means through a data carrier. And again, a data carrier, meaning that it will be defined which data carrier it will be. So actually, we have a definition, but two elements of this definition have not been fully developed yet. So this is currently the biggest regulatory challenge of the digital product pass. Where does this concept come from at all? You must have heard about the European Green Deal, the EU plan to achieve the carbon neutrality or emissions neutrality until 2050. And one of its components, one of its cornerstones, is the Circular Economy Action Plan, created in 2020, a way to make the European economy more circular And yeah, to make it circular, you need to have circular products which are produced, recycled, reused, etc. So these were the foundations, and out of these initiatives or plans, first the EU battery regulation was born for a very specific product, for the EV battery, and then let's say then came the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, affecting the market horizontally. So not only targeting a specific product, but basically all products. Speaking of this piece of legislation, it's important to say that it replaces a previous one, the so-called EU Eco-Design Directive from 2009. It replaces it in a very comprehensive way. The previous one had a rather limited scope. It was applicable mostly to energy-related products. The current one, the new one, ESPR, has a much wider range, and also lots of new requirements for products in terms of product durability, repairability, recyclability, etc. It adopts a horizontal approach to products, and one of the main new features of the new eco-design regulation is the increased focus on product information, and especially the requirement for the digital product passport. Now, it's important to bear in mind that there are other regulations out there containing elements of some digital data sets required for products, or which refer to the ESPR regulation. So that you, if you produce any of these products, it's also important to bear in mind that there are other regulations. So there will not be just one regulation, but a kind of a system of regulations referring to and based on the ESPR. So, for instance, most of them are currently in the draft status. The construction products regulation, the EU detergents regulation, the draft toy safety regulation, all of them already contain elements of digital product pass and will be linked somehow to the ESPR. Also, please notice that there are not really product related regulations, which also put some supply chain tracking requirements, like the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or also Critical Raw Materials Act. So there are links to other regulations as well, just to give you a broader picture. Now, what are the main features of the digital product pass? So the goal of this tool is to make digital access to relevant product information in the area of sustainability, circularity, and legal compliance as well. This data set should contain all mandatory information, which will be published hopefully in the coming months. It will be uniquely linked to a product. So each DVP will have a unique link to a product it is representing. It will have, or it may have, 3 different levels of information granularity, either at a model basis, or at a batch basis, or at an item basis. I must say, it's hard to imagine that you will start with this 3rd granularity level, item basis. Probably the first regulated product will be rather at the model basis, because with all the information required and all the effort needed for the tracking, it will be a big burden to have this for single items. Yeah, then access to the data will be by a unique product identifier, which will be embedded in some data carrier. We'll see what it will be, maybe a QR code, maybe an NFC chip, or maybe something else. It will be based on a search mechanism. And another important feature is that it will be based on the need to know principle. There will be different, you will see in a second, different actors will have access to the DPP, but they will all be able to get different types of information. So some will be fully public, some will be restricted only to authorities. This management of access will also be a challenge, as I will show you in a second. And then the last but not least, it will be based on a decentralized approach to data storage. So there will be no single base with all the DPPs and all the information. There will be an EU register with the unique product identifiers, but it will not be stored, all product information will not be stored in one single data storage. Now we are talking about the DPP, but which products will require it first? It is still difficult to say. The EU has not made a final statement. There is a document in development, the ESPR working plan, with prioritized product categories. So these are possibly the first products to be regulated, but again, necessarily not all of them at the same time. Some chosen categories from this list might be targeted, like textiles, like furniture and mattresses, chemicals, batteries. Anyway, through the EU battery regulation, then tires, electronic devices, ICT devices, and construction products. So this year we should know for sure which products will really be targeted first by the digital product pass. Now, what kind of information will be needed to provide in the DPP? This is an exemplary list, and it may differ from product to product, and the delegated acts will tell us, hopefully, which information for which products will be needed. For instance, this might be user manuals, instructions, warning, safety information, so product-related information for consumers. Then end-of-life instructions, how to recycle, how to reuse, how to dispose a product, information that, for example, will be very useful for recyclers. Like also recycling content, in general, the potential for remanufacturing, etc. Then it must have element, a unique product identifier, so some number, some code, which will enable to track the product and to identify it somehow. Then, as you know, in the EU, there are many product groups with conformity documentation requirements, like the EU Declaration of Conformity, the technical documentation, risk assessment. Most probably for these products, this documentation will be required in the digital product pass. Then we move towards the product composition. So, for example, the raw materials used for the product, also the substances of concern contained in it. And here it becomes tricky because you might have noticed that, for example, the EU restriction on hazardous substances directive, it also requires this information, passing of information about some substances along the supply chain, and very often different levels, or the final manufacturer, he doesn't really know what is contained in the product. He cannot get this information from his suppliers. So already now, this information requirement, which is already there based on other regulations, is not always met. So here I'm very curious how it will be ensured that the same information or even more information could be provided for the digital product pass. And then, for example, some basic information about the manufacturer, the importer, and also this might prove tricky as well, the environmental impact, like the carbon and environmental footprint. So here again, the European Commission will tell us for which products this will be required or how it would be calculated, but it is a piece of information that might be included in the digital product pass. Regarding the technicalities, the foundations were already laid in the ESPR regulation in the chapter 3. Especially three articles deal with the digital product pass, 9, 10, and 11. Here, just an excerpt to give you some ideas. It will have to be affixed to the product or packaging or the documentation. it will be based on open standards, so that you would like to avoid any proprietary solutions here. There will be open standards to code, let's say, the digital product passport. It will have to be machine readable, structured, and searchable. Then there is, in the regulation itself, there is a huge list of possible economic actors who will need to have access to the DPP. It will be customers, of course, importers, distributors, dealers, professional repairers, refurbishers, recyclers, obviously also authorities, custom authorities, then civil society organizations, trade unions as well. So all these actors will have to somehow access the DPP and maybe different levels of information. So you can see how challenging it might prove in praxis to ensure this information access. Yeah, and then there will be always an economic operator in the EU responsible for the creation of the digital product pass. He can outsource it to a DPP service provider, but this economic operator basically will be the one placing the product on the market, will be responsible for making available the DPP and for the information also, which is included in the DPP. Okay, now, where are we standing right now? What to expect in the coming months and years? I will focus first on the upper section, referring to regulations. And then in a few slides, I will comment on the standardization. Basically, as I said, the regulation was already passed in 2024. And the next step expected is the final ESPR working plan with the final prioritization of product groups in a few months, hopefully. And then in the second half of 2025, actually the most important regulations with the really badly needed details, the delegated acts, are expected. Hopefully there will be no delays. And then in theory, 2027, it should be introduced for the first product groups. But as I have mentioned, it is to be monitored because honestly, some other regulations like the deforestation regulation, the supply chain due diligence regulation, they were all postponed. And in general, the whole Green Deal is now enjoying, let's say, less public support. So let's see how this will develop for the digital product pass. So I've been mentioning these delegated acts, which are supposed to provide us more information. And to give you an idea what is missing actually and what we still don't know, there is a long list which we might expect in the coming months. And these are things like the precise data to be included in the DPP, then the concrete data carrier, then the definition of the level of the DPP, model, batch, or item, as I mentioned before. Then how the DPP is supposed to be made to customers, for example, on online platforms before purchasing the item. Then actors and their access to data. It may be different from different product groups. It doesn't have to be the same for all affected product categories. Then who is supposed to create the DPP, who is also entitled to update the DPP, because the DPP will have to sometimes be updated by other actors than the creator, for example, by the recycler, who would need to update or let's say close the DPP product pass, or a refurbisher that will also have to insert some information there. So it will all be defined in the delegated acts. Yeah, and also how the period during which the DPP will have to remain available. So all of it is still missing, and we don't know this information yet, unfortunately. To show you the complexity of this whole chain, of this whole life cycle of a DPP, you can see here different applications of a DPP, different roles which might be involved. And yeah, as I was mentioning before, the first step is the creation of a DPP. For a creation, of course, you need to collect the data. Then user-dependent reading of the information with different access rights. Then changes by third parties, access to backup data, then also the transfers of responsibility for the information. It will have to be somehow solved legally with some contracts. Also the mode for the deactivation of the DPP, etc., etc., etc. So many different applications, many different actors, and the challenge is how to manage it all, and also how to prepare, let's say, the technical basis for it. Now, regarding the technicalities and the standardization, so far I have been talking about the DPP data, so the right part of this slide, about the information to be provided in the DPP, but there is a whole left side about the technical standards, about the protocols, the IT architecture, like the technical requirements for the unique identifier, for the data security. Then, as I was mentioning before, this EU DPP register will have to be created. And yeah, the whole standardization process is now ongoing. You can see it now at the bottom section of the timeline. So basically there is a joint technical committee 24. It is a technical committee at the European Standardization Organizations, CN and CENELEC, and they are currently working in different technical committees on the let's say technicalities of the infrastructure for the DPP, and this is also ongoing. This is far from being finalized, and yeah, the content may or may not be finalized by the end of 2025 and then published. It is all it may all prove quite tricky to implement all of it on time. Just to give you an idea of some aspects to be standardized: the unique identifiers, the data storage devices, how to link the product with the digital twin, how to manage the access rights, the interoperability, because there are also some other European product databases like SIP, for example. It would be nice to have this operability with the digital product pass. Then how to authenticate the data, how to ensure the data integrity, and then data security and privacy. All this will come as European harmonized standards in the coming months and years. Yeah, it's a big effort and a big challenge. What also provides a good insight into the current work on the DPP is the project funded by the EU, CIRPAS2, which runs from May 2024 to April 27, and it comprises several pilot projects which are supposed to, let's say, experiment how in practice the DPP might work, especially for target product groups: textiles, electrical equipment, tires, and construction materials. So they have a website. They publish a lot of findings there, and a lot of outcomes and from let's say from the current experiments with the DPP. So it is an interesting source of information. Now we are now coming to the impact and opportunities actually of the DPP. You might have realized it will, and for sure all of you know that it will be a big challenge for companies, especially in the light of the regulatory uncertainty. And yeah, to implement, to ensure that there are responsible employees for the DPP, for getting the information, etc. It will be a big challenge, but of course it brings several opportunities, let's say, for the economy as a whole, for the EU circular economy, if implemented correctly, if implemented on time, if the EU provides the details early enough, then indeed some value can be added here. It will boost for sure the circular economy through the material and energy efficiency. It may increase consumer confidence who will be able to access the product data and have a more transparent view of the product, especially those for whom, let's say, the sustainability of the product is important. It will give it a chance to validate environmental claims and to avoid greenwashing, because it will be no more possible to provide fake information about the, let's say, the green provenience of the product. Also, companies who are playing fair, who are compliant, will have another tool to show their compliance to clients, customers. There are other groups which will for sure benefit, like material suppliers, at least those who let's say, provide their materials from environmental friendly sources and who care about worker welfare, will be able to be more transparent and to show that they care about it. The repair professionals will be able to view the complete history of the product, repair it. Yeah, also the governments and regulators will have another tool to maybe better track the compliance and to quicker identify incompliant products from the market. So in a way, it will, if used correctly, it may better protect the EU market and fair manufacturers from unfair competition from abroad and also from dangerous products. Then, well, retailers will have new opportunities to offer environmentally friendly programs like product buybacks, etc. And yeah, and then the consumers will also be empowered to make better purchasing decisions. So there will be challenges, but also a lot of benefits to be achieved through the DPP. But now, how to prepare now for it? What can companies do now if so little is currently known? We have identified 4 areas where companies could get active right now. One is shaping upcoming regulations. And namely, there are still ongoing works at the EU at the details of the DPP. On one hand, there is the group of experts on eco-design for sustainable products, where there is an open call for new members or observers. So it's the group really working out the details of the DPP, and it makes sense to monitor this group because the information is public, and also to get involved. That's for sure one thing. Another thing is to follow the EU Commission Have Your Say public consultations, especially the categories environment and single market, because every new delegated act will be published there as a draft before it is implemented with the possibility to provide comments. There have been already two such consultations, one about the new product priorities under the ESPR, and also an upcoming one, rules for service providers of DPP. So in the coming weeks, it is to be expected that new consultations on further details will be published there, which gives you a chance to comment on the EU Commission's plans and somehow to influence the regulation. What else? Already now you can, based on this supposed information that might be required, you can have a look at your data and identify data gaps, data insufficiencies. You can see you can first try to understand what supply chain data you already have. And for example, in terms of materials, of products, you can identify the gaps. You can also have a look at how the information is managed at the company. If there is some product information management where various informations for products are stored, or if it is in different silos and systems, because this, I mean, you can start working on it already now to somehow combine the information to bring it into one pot, let's say. Then you can see what data you don't have, and if necessary, it makes sense for sure already now to maybe start thinking of modifying the procurement processes, and especially to embed more data requests in future contracts. So basically to act proactively and to request from suppliers more data already now, bearing in mind that it may be needed later. And if you don't do it now, maybe you will not have the data for the DPP. And as European companies, at least, or as economic operators, you will be in charge of providing this data. And there will be no excuse that, for example, a Chinese supplier does not want to provide it. Then the empowerment of the organization and preparation for technology changes. As you might have seen, different areas and different departments of companies will be affected by the DPP. The ESG, of course, but also material specialists, product owners. It's impossible to involve them all already now into this topic. It might be useful to start thinking of having a DPP responsible as a coordination function, because there must be someone responsible for it. Otherwise, their responsibilities will spread, and yeah, it will be difficult to coordinate. You know, also departments like the marketing department might start thinking already now how to use the data to maybe to better communicate product sustainability to consumers. And then also, the last but not least, the IT. Maybe some another data layer will be needed for the DPP, etc. So also this department must be already informed about the DPP. And yeah, we say, like, probably it's not something that companies can avoid. So we recommend to see it not as a hurdle, which it is, but try not to see it as a hurdle, but as an opportunity to improve resilience by strengthening your supply chain transparency, and also to take advantage of the growing importance of sustainable products. Okay, so basically this would be our recommendations, what you can do now. At the end, I'd like to comment on a few short, frequently asked questions which might have been puzzling you, for which there are already some answers by the European Commission, at least. And after this, if you have further questions, we will approach them. We will read them in the chat and approach you per email if we know the answers. So many are asking, for instance, if there will be an obligation for any third-party certification of the information disclosed in the DPP. Here the answer is it's not sure yet, but it's not excluded. So there might be, for some kind of information, maybe, I don't know, for example, for the carbon footprint, there might be the necessity of some third-party certification. Then, if the substances of concern will have to be included in DPPs, and also if like chemicals and their mixtures will have to have a DPP. So basically, yes, you will. Again, it's not sure to say for which products, but information about substances of concern will be one of the parts of the DPP. There will be no template for the DPP developed by the Commission. There will be the, let's say, basic requirements for the DPP, but not standardized template. Regarding the technology used for the decentralized data approach, there has been questions whether, for example, blockchain will be preferred. The EU Commission says for now there is no technology preference. Then what about if we have a complex product with components also requiring a DPP? For instance, a complex product with a battery inside, which also needs a battery. Basically, there will be two digital product passes for both, for the main product and the component, and they will have to be somehow linked so that it is clear that the battery is in the product. Then, how to source the information? Who will be in charge of ensuring that the information for the DVP is provided also from third countries. Basically, it will be the role of the economic operator. So that's why it's so important, as I mentioned before, to have a look at let's say your supply chains, especially those from third countries, to make sure the contracts, to make sure that the information is there when it is needed. There is no central monitoring of DVPs planned, but their let's say their accuracy will be checked, verified by not at the EU level, but by the national market surveillance authorities. Products outside the EU will require a passport too, and it will be the task of the economic operator or of the online marketplaces. So it won't be possible to provide products from outside the EU without the DVP. And the last but not least, the data carrier for the DVP. Again, here there is no clear answer. QR code may be sufficient, maybe not. NFC chips probably will be avoided because of their footprint. So these were some questions around the topic where the European Commission has already answered, but I know there are many other questions which remain open, and we all hope answers will appear soon. To get more answers, to get more information, or maybe not to miss any important information from the regulatory compliance area, also from the product compliance area and about the digital product pass, we encourage you to subscribe to our LinkedIn channel and yeah, to read our regulatory insights, and also to subscribe to our newsletter because it's one of the solutions to stay up to date with the regulatory developments.